To the data visualization learning session. Today, we'll be talking about cognitive load and clutter. It's the third part. From our last slide, we were talking about clutter. Now let's talk briefly about 3D visualization and why do we say that do not use 3D visualization. We should not use 3D visualization because mostly of our graphs are present in 2 dimension. And for graphs in 2 dimension, using a 3 dimension is a no because it skews the information and adds confusion to user. And for that, and for these reasons, we should just avoid using a 3 dimensional graph. Now, the main focus of our topic today is about situations where we can leave the clutter in the graph. And why do we leave the clutter in the graph? Because we want to improve the cognitive load for the user. So you see, whether you leave the clutter in the graph or not is not a scientific pure science. It's not a hard and fast rule there. It is more about intuition. It is an art form. Now, let's go and dive deeper into the situations where you can leave the clutter in the graph. The fundamental area where you can leave the clutter in a graph is when you need to do labeling in a graph. Labeling a graph is necessary because it helps to reduce the cognitive load for the user. And some people may feel it is unnecessary to put a label, but that's not true because labeling helps to reduce the cognitive load for the user, and that's why it is necessary. Now, can you tell me what are some examples of labels in a graph? Some of the examples of labels in a graph are currency symbols, percentage signs, commas with number, and scientific notations. These are some of the examples of the labels in a graph. Now, there are many kinds of currency symbols: dollars, euro sign, pound, and many other denominations. And of course, percentage sign is also important. Having a percentage sign helps to read a number easily. And when they're large numbers, having comma in the number also helps to read the number easily. Furthermore, now you have really very small number and we have some scientific notations that denote that number. And carrying that over to a label also helps to read the number easily. These are situations for labeling where you need to keep the clutter so that it's easier to read the information in a graph. You never want your user to be unclear or difficult to understand the graph. That's a no. And to avoid that, you need to keep some clutter in the graph to make sure that it's easier to read. Now, we have come to the end of our session. So let me quickly summarize what we learned today. We learned that why do we not use a 3-dimensional graph? We should not use 3-dimensional graph because of the mostly our graphs are in 2 dimension and he has to use the information. And there are instances where we need to keep the clutter in the graph such that it is easier for the user to understand the information in the graph. And that's why there are instances of labeling where we keep the clutter such that it is easier for user to understand the information present in a graph. And for these reasons, We want to keep the clutter such that, which are called labels, which can be either symbols or percentage signs or currency. This information can be kept such that whenever the user reads this graph, they can just read easily. So that's all for today. I'll see you next learning session where we are going to talk about principle of visual perception. Thank you so much.